right. As President Biden welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron for the administration's first state visit, the French leader told lawmakers Wednesday the Inflation Reduction Act is super aggressive in its protectionist climate policies, according to reports. This is super aggressive for our business people, Macron said of the industrial subsidies included in the legislation, according to Agence France Presse. The French president's grievances about the subsidies, which aim to incentivize American made tech and products, are shared by other European Union countries, which worry the move will hurt European companies. Macron added that he just wanted to be respected as a good friend and said the subsidies may perhaps fix your issue, but they will increase my problem, warning it would eliminate jobs in Europe, per the AFP. That Macron raised the matter during his trip was no surprise. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said ahead of the visit that the administration was anticipating discussing the issue with French counterparts. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Wednesday that the White House has heard Macron's comments and is prepared to talk about the issue. There's a number of provisions that will contribute to the growth of clean energy sector globally. And that is important to note. It presents significant opportunities for European firms as well as benefits to EU energy security. And this is not a zero-sum game for us. And so we see a constructive path of engagement with the EU on this. Jean-Pierre said in a press briefing, Macron is the first foreign leader Biden has hosted in official state visits since taking office. It's the French president's first time back in the U.S. since a 2018 visit during former President Trump's administration. So, a couple of things to note here. If I remember correctly, one of the most remembered phrases that people attached to Trump was America First, which is this idea that the U.S. is going to act in the best interest of its own people over the best interest of other regions and their individuals. And I don't see how anyone who, as a Trump supporter, would herald the policy of America First that would not be on board with Biden's legislation. If it's taking away positions in another country and keeping them, or rather bringing them back to the U.S., I really can't understand why we don't see more Trump supporters, backing this. It just seems to me this is in line with that same philosophy of, we take care of ourselves most importantly because we are self-preserving as a country or region. Although I guess I could chalk it all up to the fact that, unfortunately, most modern Republican politicians scoff at the environment's not really involved in actually trying to do something constructive with regard to it. So that really shouldn't be a surprise when we remember that particular thing. The part where he says, where is it? Perhaps the subsidies may perhaps fix your issue, but they will increase my problem. Well, I've never understood this, but couldn't Macron go to these other countries, these other members of the European Union, and say, okay, we need to find some way to create enough jobs to where the ones that leave from us that are going back to the U.S. Are replaced by positions that are equal in pay, equal in number of hours that are worked. I don't know. It feels like if these people sit together and scratch their heads, it shouldn't be too hard for them to figure out a way of keeping the same number of positions, even if their different jobs are no longer U.S. affiliated. And also, when we get to the part down here where the press secretary says, there's a number of provisions that will contribute to the growth of clean energy sector globally. And it has significant opportunities for benefits, et cetera, not a zero-sum game for us. Well, I've never understood how every time it seems that one of these countries does something that is specifically in their best interest, there's another one who comes along and goes, oh, but if you do this, it's going to hurt us. Well, why are we supposed to really care? I mean, it's not as if by implementing the Inflation Reduction Act, you're going to see all of these just jobs just vanish and there won't be any other positions for people to get over there. So I'm really dumbfounded as to how we don't see more conservative support for this particular legislation, because it does tie into Trump's whole thing of America first. And I can only chalk it up to most of the Republicans that are in office anyway being climate deniers, and most of the ones that are in office, and even a lot of the ones that are just regular people, being partisan hacks, where if their person does it, it's good. If the person from the other party does it, it's bad. The same old team player stuff that's really toxic, and it's part of the reason why we never get anywhere with a lot of this stuff. It's interesting that Biden's been in office for almost 2 years, and this is his first. And I always have to remind myself about the virus and the safety protocols, etc. But that's an extremely interesting, just like little piece of like tidbit of information, because I mean, for as long as I can remember, and I've had vivid memories of Bush and Obama mostly. You see nothing but what felt like every other week, various heads of state coming to the White House. If it wasn't every other week, it was at least once a month, to where you just were so used to these different people from this particular country or that particular country showing up repeatedly. And to know that he's almost been in office. I mean, even if he gets a second term, that means for almost a whole quarter of his presidency, he just had no heads of state coming, and that is very unique, and that goes back to why that virus was such a significant event, because it's really made a lot of conventional norms just go out the window, to where every time you see these people photographed together, they have the mask on, and even as things are seemingly going back to normal, you're still dealing with the effects of it. So I just find that really interesting, and not as interesting as Macron thinking that the U.S. is supposed to care if uh, his country loses jobs. Because, like I said, where was he when we were losing jobs, and all the homelessness that we have? I've never seen him show any concern or upset, or anger over that. Which it's not his job, it's not his problem, because he doesn't run the U.S. But still, we're supposed to. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of these foreign heads of state, like they want you to be sympathetic toward them, but when it comes to doing something or showing some sympathy toward Americans, it's like you can't even be bothered. Like, the U.S. is so interesting in just how many people from across the world expect our assistance, or um, just some kind of empathy from us, but then we can never be expected to receive it back. We're never granted the same courtesy. So I'm a fan of this particular act. I've had problems with Biden before when it comes to pretty much every issue, but on this, I think he's right on the money.